This is the place where NFL legends live on and share their stories. This is the place for our Spotlight on the Positive segment, sharing what's good in the world of sports. This is also the place for the NFL Alumni Association and the Gridiron Greats. This place I speak of, Thursday Night Tailgate. Let's say hello to your hosts, Chris Mascaro and Bob Lazzari. Guys, take it away.
Thank you, Joe. Good evening and happy Friday Eve, everybody. And thank you for joining us tonight here on Thursday Night Tailgate, where your favorite NFL legends live on. Chris Mascaro and Bob Lazzari here to brighten up your Thursday night. If you're tuning in as a podcast, well, we'll do our best to brighten up the next couple of hours for you. But I tell you what brightens up my Thursday nights is getting to say hello to my co-host, Mr. Bob Lazzari. Bob, how are you tonight, my friend?
Hey, Chris. Happy month of May, my friend.
Indeed. Not, as we were talking off air, crazy times for you guys. It's just, New England weather, Bob, has just got to be one of the most confounding things on the planet. You're freezing, and the snow and all of that sort of stuff, and it lingers on, and it just sort of blows right through spring, and now you're 90 degrees today. Boy, it's got to drive you nuts.
It's crazy, Chris, and I've talked to Ricky Foggy, our good friend, at times, and he says the same thing about Minnesota. But there's something about New England because we're in that whole jet stream, Chris, and the way it is here, we're like right near a river, and it's so many things here that happen. But I think the last time I talked to you was 30 degrees. Today it hit 91, and it's just been so unpredictable. I think it's been going to go back down to the 30s maybe on the weekend. So. It is what it is, but at least we've made it to May, and that was the goal here.
Yeah, you've gotten that far. So hopefully, the 90s subsides a little bit. We're hoping all those teens and 20 temperatures would subside. Now you're on the opposite extreme. We hope the 90s subside, gives you some semblance of a spring, or ease you into summer and get you back down into the 60s or 70s. So Bob, hopefully this time next week we're talking about more mediocre temperatures, if you will.
The word gradual. Nothing happens gradual around here, Chris, and that's something we've come to expect. But, hey, I'm not complaining about the heat and never will again.
Good for you. Well, Bob, I'm scratching my head a little bit, since last week's draft, which, we'll talk about throughout tonight's show. One of the things that we'll get into is how well teams did, maybe how poorly, or a head scratcher or two that happened. At the same time, I got my Penguins Capitals here over my shoulder. I got Red Sox Rangers over my shoulder. So a lot going on, a lot happening tonight. But I think mostly what we'll be getting into is the draft. I just want to get a quick thought from you on the draft.
Well, it's so hard to kind of prognosticate, Chris. As you know, a lot of these teams we don't think did well are probably going to look good, and some of the teams that we said, they had a really good draft, may not work out for them. But you got to be happy with, I think overall, like a team like Arizona. I mean, people are pretty high on that because to get Rosen and to get him a receiver to go with him, they got 2 for 1 there. The kid Kirk from Texas A&M. They're saying both of those guys are pro-ready now, and they're good players. They also got a little help on the offensive line, and they drafted a guy from my alma mater, Chris, Chase Edmonds, in the 4th round. People don't recognize the name, but he was one of the top rushers ever in FCS, has all the Fordham records, but he's a 4th rounder, and he's a hard worker. I'm interested to see how he does, but you got to be happy with what Arizona did. And there's a lot of people, Chris, that, the whole Baker Mayfield thing coming to Cleveland shocked us on draft night as we were talking about that. And then, of course, being able to, they passed on Chubb to get Ward from Ohio State. People are saying, look, Ward's a very good cornerback, and it's going to work somehow. But it's very strange things. And then you have teams that, like Chicago. I think Chicago did pretty good, Chris. We talked about Roquan Smith on this show before, a very talented linebacker. They also got a very good, I think this guy's going to go under the radar a little bit. Anthony Miller from Memphis is a great wide receiver. So I think right away, I mean, that team, they gave Trubisky some weapons, and so I think they're going to be improved. But as we go on through each team, I think, it's people did what they could at the time. A lot of absolutely what New England does, they did again. They did not really shore up that defense like I thought they might, but maybe we can get into that with a couple of our guests here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We're going to spend a lot of time, going in and out of the draft tonight, with Russell and Tony and all of those sorts of things. So to that end, on tonight's show, we'll kick it off by recapping the draft with our good friend Russell Baxter. And, Bob, like you mentioned a moment ago, really want to get Russell's take on, Baker Mayfield at 1, Denzel Ward, which you just talked about with the Browns, at 4. It's not the way I would have gone. I'm not sure it was the way Russell or most people would have gone, but, that's why they're the Browns. They always think a little bit differently. We'll see if the differently is right this time, right? Like we said last week, there are 3 things you can count on in life. That's death, taxes, and the Browns picking the wrong guy. So we'll see if maybe Baker Mayfield is the right guy this time.
Yeah, it's, again, Russell's the guy you want to talk to, and I'm sure he'll have some great insight into this.
Yeah, and he'll join us about 15 minutes from now. At the bottom of the hour, Tony Collins is going to be back with us after a week off to celebrate his anniversary with his lovely wife. We'll get Tony's thoughts on the Patriots draft and what they've got going on there up in Foxborough. He'll be here about 30 minutes from now. Later on in the hour, we're going to be joined by another TNT Hall of Famer and AT&T Sportsnet Pittsburgh host, Paul Alexander. You know what a great friend of the show Paul is. Bob, I want to get his thoughts on the Steelers' number 1 pick, which was safety Terrell Edmunds. And people, including me, were surprised to hear that name called out, Bob, because he was projected as like a late second-day pick, not late second-round pick, late second-day pick, which means a third-rounder, certainly not a first-rounder. And depending on which site you go to, he was rated the 5th or 6th best safety in the draft, yet the Steelers make him the 3rd safety chosen. And again, in the first round, inside linebacker was their greatest need, and they didn't draft a linebacker at all. And throughout the course of the rest of the draft, they actually drafted another safety on top of having signed safety Morgan Burnett as a free agent from Green Bay. And they still have Sean Davis, who, took a bit of a step backwards last season, but it was only his 2nd year in the league. So, Bob, it's all a bit puzzling to me what the Steelers did.
It is, Chris, and again, Paul will be the guy to give us more insight into this. I'm interested to see what he has to throw at us. But, Paul, we know one of our favorite, Chris, he's a very busy man now, of course, talking about the Steelers draft, Penguins in the playoffs, Pittsburgh Penguins holding their own in the playoffs. So this is going to be fun talking to him. Paul, he's a great guy, as you know, one of our faves.
Yep. He'll be here about 45 minutes from now. We'll kick off hour number 2 with a long overdue return visit from former Jaguars running back Stacey Mack. I'm looking forward, Bob, to talking with Stacey about several things, but most of all, like we talked about with Greg Lloyd a little bit last week, why do the Jags seem to have the Steelers number, right? So I'm curious to get Stacey's thoughts. Plus, we'll talk about what it was like to be in the same backfield with a guy like Fred Taylor, a guy, Bob, who I think might be one of the most underrated running backs of all time for a guy who is 17th on the all-time rushing list. When he retired, he was 14th, a guy who had over 1,100 yards rushing in a season 7 different times, yet only went to 1 Pro Bowl and is still, like I say, not even in consideration much for the Hall of Fame. It's kind of a head-scratcher.
Yeah, Taylor was one of my favorites in college at Florida, and coming out, he was a smaller guy, and people, kind of went under the radar, and then, of course, started doing what he does and became one of the great backs in history. It's a great story, and Stacey, I'm sure, can spread more light on that, too.
And we'll round out tonight's show with a visit from former Lions Pro Bowl punter Jim Arnold. And Jim played his college ball at Vandy, was an All-American all 4 years that he was there, all-conference, I should say, all 4 years he was there, and an All-American. Inducted into their Hall of Fame back in 2009. And, Bob, Jim's your kind of guy, right? Very cerebral, a kicker, a guy who worked hard, and then also got a lot of success as well.
12 years in the league, Chris. I believe it was 3 different teams, and punted a lot because twice he led the league in total punting yardage and also led the league, I believe, in early 80s with an average of almost 45 one year. So, again, one of those guys that was drafted as a punter. So you know he had to be good and had a great career, again, like you said, a Pro Bowler, and ended his career, Chris, under the great Don Shula. So we'll be happy to talk to Jim tonight.
Absolutely. He'll be here about 90 minutes from now. So, folks, we're going to have a lot of fun tonight here on Thursday Night Tailgate. So you know what? Sit back, relax. Let us take your mind off everything else going on in your life for the next couple of hours. And, folks, as you know, we're brought to you by the great folks over at the Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory, the Salt Creek Golf Retreat up in beautiful Nashville, Indiana, our friends over at Tops, and our partners at the NFL Alumni Association and Mike Ditka's organization, the Gridiron Greats, who we love. Go online to check them out at gridirongreats.org. Also, check out our newest sponsors, former Houston Oilers quarterback Dan Pastorini and his company, DP Quality Foods. Dan has a lineup of award-winning spices that you're going to love. You can check them out online at dpqualityfoods.com. And also former Pro Bowl quarterback Drew Bledsoe and Doubleback Winery. You can find their great selection of wines online at doubleback.com.
It's time for another edition of Bob's Take. So, Bob, tell us, what's on your mind tonight?
Yeah, let's get into this week's edition of Bob's Take. And, Bob, tonight I want to start out by getting your thoughts on the draft. And you've talked a little bit about some things already, but in your mind, who are the winners and which maybe were a couple of teams that left you scratching your head?
Well, again, again, here in the New York area, Chris, it was obviously there's a big spotlight on the Giants, and people are saying, oh, okay, which quarterback are they going to take? But Gettleman was one of those guys that was true to his guns. He said, if Barkley's available, he's the best player in the draft. We're going to pick the best player in the draft. Now, he's a great player, Chris, and I mean, he's going to do well. I don't think anyone, barring any kind of crazy injury, I haven't met a guy anybody that doesn't think this guy is going to be a total stud. And and as we talked to Russell last week, Russell said basically that it's not a question of them looking for a quarterback right now. They don't know about Webb yet. And Manning, I guess a move like this, Chris, without looking quarterback, is they're putting a lot more confidence in Manning. Maybe that'll play more than a year or two. But Barkley, obviously, and under the radar a little bit, Chris, was Will Hernandez, the guard that they drafted in the second round. Very, very talented guy. And you and I had talked on the show last year a lot about how just Manning was not getting protected. And so this helps a lot with that. And they also got a guy named Carter from Georgia in the third round, very talented player. So I think the Giants did good. A lot of people are saying, oh, man, no quarterback and just Barkley, they're going to be one-dimensional. And I know they had to do some work on defense, and they did get a guy named B.J. Hill out of North Carolina State, good tackle, too. So, I mean, they did pretty well. I think Gettleman coming back and doing what he did, they're going to be exciting to watch. There's no question about that. So, and I think that was a lot of it, getting excitement back in the place of New York Giant fans, obviously. So the Giants, I think, did pretty good, as far as what they could do, Chris. And as far as some of the teams some head scratchers, I think, were a team like the Saints, Chris. I mean, a lot of people are thinking that, this is a team that they needed some help on defense. That always seems to be, they're like that team like the Packers, and they just need that little more on defense to get it done. Well, they really didn't do too much, Chris. They went for a wide receiver. This is a team, obviously, that never has trouble scoring points. So who do they take? They take a wide receiver, Tre'Quan Smith from Central Florida. They go for a Florida State offensive tackle. And finally, in the third round, they did get a safety, but really no names there that you would probably be scared that you'd say, man, they're going to be much improved. So that was a team that kind of had me scratching my head. And like I said before, I think a team like Chicago did good. That's a team that really needs to step it up, Chris, to get the interest back. I just like that Roquan Smith and this Anthony Miller a lot. Those are going to be two impact players right off the bat, and so we'll see how much they can improve. But there's a lot more, and again, like I said, we'll go through a lot of this with Russell. It's really exciting, and until they get on the field, it's all speculation.
And Bob, staying on the draft, I read an article on ESPN.com that said if Baker Mayfield wasn't the number one pick by the Browns, that the Patriots were set to make a blockbuster deal with the Giants to move up to number 2 and pick him. But, Bobby, Mayfield doesn't seem like a player that would fit in the Patriots mold. This doesn't seem like a Patriots sort of guy. Would that have surprised you if the Patriots had moved up and made that sort of move to get him?
Well, usually I tell you nothing that the Patriots do surprises me, but that might have done it, Chris, because, like you said, they recruit guys that just need to fit into a system and aren't kind of guys that would ever have any kind of, well, I shouldn't say ever, but coming in probably wouldn't have any character concerns at all. Mayfield I don't think he has character concerns, Chris, more than he's just a very, very confident, cocky kid. And I don't know how he would have done maybe backing up the greatest of all time for a couple of years. But when you think about it, I mean, for them to even think that, they probably thought that they at least could have an impact on this guy, or that Brady, the way they play the game. I mean, Mayfield, like Brady, Chris, is not a guy that can really throw the ball down the field that much. He's more into accuracy, short stuff. So I think he probably would learn a ton from Brady. And obviously he's probably a better athlete than Brady. So you could almost see if he bought into that system, and when you come to New England, you either have to or you're gone, it probably would have probably done good as that backup. But I guess they're just not ready to say goodbye to Mr. Brady yet.
One more, Bob. And a couple of weeks ago, we talked about Dez Bryant being released by the Cowboys, and like I say, it's 2 weeks later, and here we are, and he's still a free agent. No one has sort of rushed out there to go pick him up. And are you surprised, A, by that, the fact that he is still a free agent, and B, to hear that Jerry Jones said that he wouldn't re-sign Dez even if he came at a reduced price?
Pretty surprising, Chris, but, as I told you a couple of weeks ago, he really screwed himself, turning down that deal from Baltimore. That would have been the last contract he'll ever have to sign. He would have been making $7 million a year. Can you imagine that? Now they're talking league. There's teams out there just unwilling to pay him the minimum. Many are saying that they won't do it because he's gone down that much, even though he's just around 30 years old or less. So that's just amazing to me. But him turning down the 3-year contract, his plan, from what I read, was just to sign a 1-year deal somewhere, prove himself, and then maybe sign a 3-year. I mean, I don't know how much does he think he has left, Chris, when there's GMs right now saying we don't want to sign him for the minute. So there's a major thing there. But every article you read and every interview you read, everyone is still concerned with the guy's character. There's no question he likes to win. They just said he's kind of emotionally immature about how he goes about it, and that just does not fit into the systems of a lot of these teams.
And just to take that a little bit further, Bob, one of the things we talked about a couple of weeks ago was that maybe the Giants is the most logical place for him to end up. Do you still feel that way? Could the Giants be the team that steps up and to even extrapolate a little further? Could this lead or drag out all the way into training camp, perhaps?
Very interesting. Again, as much of all the character issues we've talked about, I thought at least some team would take a shot on him, and it didn't surprise me that the Ravens came, because the Ravens have done things like that before. But can you imagine him in New York, Chris? I mean, Beckham and Barkley and Manning and this guy. I mean, it would be exciting to watch, and if he has anything left, but. I am not sure. This surprises me, and we have to definitely ask Russell about this. I thought for sure right after the draft he would be signing with somebody, but again, it all comes down to people thinking that if he just refused a 3-year, $20 million deal, what is he really looking for? Is this guy, mentally stable? I don't know where his mind is at, and I think that's scaring away a lot of people too.
All right, there you go, folks. That is Bob's take for this week. And as you all know, here on TNT, we are sponsored by the Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory. If you're as excited about the new baseball season as Bob and I are, well, you need to go check out the Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory. They were inducted into the TripAdvisor Certificate of Excellence Hall of Fame, and the museum is such a wonderful experience for everybody in your family because you get to go in there and walk their live production line and see some of the 1.8 million bats that they make every year, and they've been doing it now for 134 years. Don't miss the bat vault because you get to walk in there and hold game-used bats from so many of the game's greatest legends. Guys like Hank Aaron, Ted Williams, my hero growing up, Willie Stargell. Got my Willie Stargell jersey on tonight to represent my man. To find out more information about the museum and to book your visit, go online to sluggermuseum.com. We are also proud to be sponsored by our good friend and TNT Hall of Famer Randy Manier and the great folks up at the Salt Creek Golf Retreat up in beautiful Nashville, Indiana. We'll be up there again about a month from now. Very much looking forward to getting back on that golf course and seeing Randy. In Nashville, Indiana, by the way, was a top 20, voted as a top 20 small town in the country by Smithsonian Magazine. We're also sponsored by our good friend, former Houston Oilers quarterback Dan Pastorini and DP Quality Foods. Let's hear from our announcer, Joe LaGenusa, about both the Salt Creek Golf Retreat and DP Quality Foods as well.
If you're looking for a great place for your annual golf outing, a weekend golf getaway, or just a round of golf with your buddies, then Salt Creek Golf Retreat is just what you're looking for. Centrally located in Nashville, Indiana, just south of Indianapolis and west of Cincinnati. This challenging but fair 18-hole golf course appeals to all skill levels, and its scenic views of rolling hills and tree-lined fairways are sure to make golfing memories for years to come. Owned and operated by former Purdue and New York Giant fullback Randy Manier, Salt Creek Golf Retreat offers stay-and-play packages that include golf and a fully furnished 1- or 2-bedroom condo. After your rounds, be sure to stop by the 19th Hole Sports Bar and Restaurant for great food, fun, and drinks. Randy and his staff will treat you like family. For more information, log on to saltcreekgolf.com. That's saltcreekgolf.com. Or give them a call at 812-558-5944. Salt Creek Golf Retreat. Start making your golfing memories today. Most folks are familiar with Dan Pastorini's accomplishments on the football field or in race cars. But what most don't know? Dan's family background in the restaurant business. For 37 years, Dan's parents, Dante and Dorothy, owned and operated Pastorini's Longhorn Restaurant. So the Pastorini family has a long history of making great-tasting food from family recipes. Dan and his partners want to bring some of that to you with their Texas-style rub, Texas-style hickory rub, and their garlic and herb seasoning. First introduced back in 2011, Dan's Texas-style rub immediately began winning awards, taking home the first-place trophy for Best Ribs at the Pasadena Livestock Show and Barbecue Cook-Off. They did it again at the 2012 Texas Ranger Wounded Warrior Cook-Off, and the awards just keep on coming. Check out Dan's line of spices online at dpqualityfoods.com. That's dpqualityfoods.com. And take what you put on the grill to a whole new level.
Yeah, check them both out online at saltcreekgolf.com and dpqualityfoods.com. All right, now back and making his 18th appearance with us here on Thursday Night Tailgate is NFL stats guru and a member of our 2015 Hall of Fame class, Russell Baxter. And as we always say, no one on the planet knows more about every team and every player who's probably ever played in the league than Russell does. Be sure to check him out on his website, profootballguru.com, and follow him on Twitter at BaxFootballGuru. You can also find his work on fansided.com, NFLSpinZone.com, and WBLZ, and we're glad he is back with us again tonight here on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, Russell, Chris, and Bob, thanks for coming back on the show.
Welcome back, Russ.
Hi, guys. I really appreciate the introduction and all that stuff, but, ever since Pluto went away, we're only down to 8 planets, so it just doesn't have the same kind of bite to it.
Well, we'll try to spice it up a little for you next time.
Maybe you could start. I mean, can we work Thanos in there somewhere? I mean, he seems like he's doing okay.
Indeed. So, Russell, help us out. Recap the draft first. First of all, what did you think about the Browns picking Baker Mayfield at number 1 and then Denzel Ward at number 4?
Well, I think a lot of people thought Ward was obviously a little bit of a surprise because, depending on your mocks and depending what you thought people wanted to see, and that was pairing Bradley Chubb with Myles Garrett. But, you look at what Cleveland has done in free agency via trades as well to solidify that cornerback spot. They're very concerned about that cornerback spot, and understandably so, okay? I mean, let's not forget, and I don't have to remind you, Chris, of all people, the caliber of wide receivers that play in the AFC North, okay? Antonio Brown, A.J. Green, Juju Smith-Schuster. I mean, take your pick, okay? Baltimore went out and signed 3 veteran receivers. That includes Michael Crabtree now. So I certainly understand, you want to beat the teams in your division. Now, for the Browns, they haven't beaten anybody in the division in years, okay? That's not a wisecrack. That's just the fact. So for Greg Williams' defense to match up, I think he feels like they have enough of a pass rush. Not saying they won't get more, but they need some cornerbacks to match up with these guys. And there's a reason they haven't won a division game in a long time. As for Baker Mayfield, I wish I knew more about. I know he won the Heisman Trophy. It's not like I do scouting or anything, but boy, did he get a lot of almost like a boost of confidence from a lot of the teams that I think we were surprised, as we have read over, that were really interested in moving up for him. Obviously, the Jets. I think a lot of people thought he was just going to fall to the Jets at number 3. But John Dorsey played his game of poker. He kept very, very quiet. He was I think the best word to describe him is moxie. And, the Browns, obviously, who've gone through 28 different starting quarterbacks since 1999, and just traded away this offseason their starting quarterback in the past year, Deshaun Kaiser, who started 15 games for them, benched for 1 game, benched for a guy who's now no longer with the team. I mean, they kind of cleaned house. So, but I mean, no reason not to believe some of the stuff you read that New England was very interested in Baker Mayfield. The problem is jumping all the way up to number 1 from number 23. That's even Jesse Owens could make that leap. So I mean, obviously he impressed a lot of people, and hopefully for the Browns' sake, they got their man. I mean, and they don't have to rush him in there. They've got Tyrod Taylor. I actually thought it was a very smart move by John Dorsey because they needed somebody at the quarterback position who could bring a little stability and also prevent from turning over the football. Okay? I'm sure I've thrown this out already. The Cleveland Browns last year, in an era where we don't see as many turnovers as we used to, coughed up the football 41 times last year as a team. 41. Those are like 1970s, 1980s numbers. Okay? With more physical. I mean, this was just sloppy football. And Deshaun Kaiser, bless his soul, obviously had 28 of those 41 turnovers. Now, I can tell you, Tyrod Taylor in 3 years as the Buffalo Bills starting quarterback, and even if you include his years with the Ravens where he barely played, he doesn't have 28 turnovers in his entire career. So one way listen, I've done 98 years of study on this. I'm almost certain one way to improve your offense is to hang on to the football.
Indeed. So, Browns aside, Russell, who do you think did really well in the draft, and who's causing you to scratch your head a little bit?
Well, shameless plug. I did a piece for FanSide talking about the 5 teams I thought. It wasn't necessarily, Bob and Chris, who I thought had the best drafts. Okay? I'm sorry, Miller has the best drafts. We all know that. Okay? So it was the teams I thought that helped themselves the most based on what they were looking for and need and what they were able to get. So the Giants need a running game, and they need help on the offensive line. Well, they got Saquon Barkley, and they got Will Hernandez, the big guard from UTEP. They're going to put him next to Nate Solder and watch Saquon run. I mean, to me, Saquon was the best player in the draft. I think we talked about it last week. He can run, he can catch, he can block, he can even return kicks if need be. He did that last year. He had a couple kickoff returns for touchdowns. I thought they helped themselves. I thought Tampa Bay helped themselves in terms of they needed somebody to plug next to Gerald McCoy. They got that with Vita Vea, which every time I hear that name, I think of I Love Lucy, Vitamita Benjamin. They also got Ronald Jones, the running back out of USC. This was the team that let Doug Martin go. I think he'll wind up the immediate starter in their backfield. Chicago continues to intrigue me. Roquan Smith. They got another wide receiver in Anthony Miller. But I thought the team that helped themselves the most, to answer your question, was the Indianapolis Colts. They got two big guards, not LeBron James and Russell Westbrook. I hope I'm saying that right. And they also went out and got a lot of edge rushers. Their defense has been very disappointing for any number of years, even when Peyton Manning was there. That beef up the middle, I really thought Chris Ballard did a nice job. And if you remember last year, early on in the draft, they went out and got defensive backs like Malik Hooker, their first-round pick. This year, they really kind of concentrated on the front seven. And if those young guys can come around, the point I was trying to make is we still don't know, Chris and Bob, about Andrew Luck. We really don't. But I think what Chris Ballard did in the draft, he didn't do that much in free agency. They wound up picking, by the way, four guys in the second round. What I thought he did in the draft was make it possible that this team could be very competitive even without Andrew Luck.
Bob, questions for Russell?
Yeah, Russ, great to speak with you again. And back to the Giants a little bit, Russ, and I agree with you. I think they improved. Will Hernandez, you needed to protect Manning a lot since last year. Flowers is now gone. It seems like they're cleaning house. They're going to have a new, obviously new coaching, and they did pretty good. I think they balanced it pretty good too, Russ. They got a couple good defensive players in the third round. And obviously everyone's talking about no quarterback, but they did get Lauletta from Richmond in the fourth round. I'm wondering, what do you see? Is this going to give a shot in the arm to a guy like Manning? I mean, he's going to have the tools to work with. Is this going to breathe new life into him? And what's going to happen with the backup quarterback position there?
I think, to be honest with you, there's a lot of life breathed, for lack of a better word, back in the Giants because, and I don't say this to be mean, but it became very apparent as the year went on that Ben McAdoo was just not the right man for the job. Okay, I have never heard. You realize at one time during the year, and as it turned out, when it was all said and done, the Giants had 3 wins, and they had 3 quarterbacks suspended for one game. When you have as many suspensions as you have wins, you've had a long year. Okay? Now, to Ben McAdoo's credit, I will say this. He's the only man to bring down Eli Manning since 2004 and knock him out of a game.
True.
I think there was new life because, and I think Jerry Reese, in supporting the decision that Ben McAdoo made, or whoever made it, Ben McAdoo lost control of the team. I mean, that's from afar, but I don't think I'm out of my mind on this. I think Eli's got plenty of life left, and I think let's put it this way: Arnold and Allen and all that. If those guys were not available this year, I wonder how many people would actually be talking about Eli's successor. Because I don't hear anybody talking about Philip Rivers' successor, and I don't hear anybody talking about Ben Roethlisberger's successor, unless it's Ben Roethlisberger. And, those guys still have a lot of life. I mean, I find it funny. I mean, the class of 2004 has obviously made its mark, those 3 guys. I think they're all over 50,000 yards. They're all over 300 touchdown passes. But, riddle me this, Batman. If those guys are on their last legs, then what the hell is Drew Brees and Tom Brady, who were in the league 3 or 4 years before they were?
And, Russ, how about the across town or across the stadium, I should say, the Jets, Sam Darnold? I mean, this is a guy probably will be playing behind Josh McCown, but I can't see that happening too long. A guy's probably, many people are saying obviously he's a franchise-changing pick, but this is a team that obviously needs help on offense, though. They have to build around him. Is this a couple 2-3 year plan with the Jets now?
I don't know if it's a 2 or 3 year plan. I mean, I look at what Josh McCown did last year. Honestly, I thought he had a very solid year. He wound up breaking his wrist in week 13 in Denver. Or I'm sorry, week 14, completed like 67% of his passes. They don't have a lot of guys to help him. I mean, Quincy Enunwa wound up missing the whole year. Robbie Anderson, we won't even get into that. He had a terrific year for them. Austin Seferian-Jenkins, they're not surrounded with a lot of skilled people. I think I threw this stat out to you last week. Darnold was the first player the Jets took in the first round from the offensive side of the ball in 9 years. Okay? No linemen, no wide receivers, no tight ends, no running backs in the first round. I mean, that's great, but how about, as Mr. Miyagi said, how about a little balance? Okay? They have not developed the offense whatsoever. I don't care who they would have in there. That's the biggest problem. Now, I like what the Jets did. They went out and got Isaiah Crowell. They already have Bilal Powell. They've got Thomas Rawls, who they brought in, and maybe he can stay healthy. But offensively, they are devoid. I mean, listen, 2015, Ryan Fitzpatrick had a magical year. They had Brandon Marshall. They had Eric Decker. They had Powell. I mean, it was a different team. And they have lost that since then. But for the most part, it's a team that when Rex Ryan was there, and to a degree Todd Bowles, that is relied on their defense. And their defense has kind of hit the skids the last couple of years because it can only absorb so much of the team responsibility. I like the fact they went out and got some inside linebackers and Kevin Minter and Avery Williamson from the Titans and so on. And when Trumaine Johnson signed there, guys, it showed me that people liked what they saw out of the Jets. All I heard last year is the Jets are going to tank, the Jets are going to go 0-16, blah, blah, blah. They were a pretty feisty football team for the most part. I mean, they laid some eggs, but they also had their share of frittatas.
Russell, before we let you go, remind our listeners one more time about how they can follow you on social media and all the different places they can read your articles.
Bax Football Guru on Twitter. ProFootballGuru.com is the website. There's Pro Football Guru on Instagram. There's Pro Football Guru on Facebook. And I don't often talk about some of the team pages I have for Pro Football Guru on Facebook, something I experimented with about a year or so ago. Might do even more this year. Packers, Cowboys, Steelers, Redskins, Patriots. So everything I write either goes on Twitter or goes on Facebook. But as usual, thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it. And going to be a fun couple of weeks. There's still a lot of, I know you guys were talking about Des Bryant and so on. You know, as we see other veterans kind of get cut, we're going to have that second wave of free agency sooner than later.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting time up until we get into training camp. So we're 100% with you there, Russell. Thank you so much. I know you've got an event to get to. Thank you so much for your time tonight, Russell. We look forward to catching up with you again real soon, my friend.
And good luck on the golf course. Yeah, good luck on the golf course you're going to, Chris. And, say hello to all those balls you donated. So.
Appreciate you, Russell.
No problem.
Take care, my friend. See you, Russ. That is the great Russell Baxter. We've got our next guest, Tony Collins, hanging on the line. We're going to get to Tony right after this quick station break.
Hear your favorite NFL legends sharing their stories and insights every week right here on Thursday Night Tailgate with Chris Mascaro and Bob Lazari. Take it away, guys.
The door is locked. There's no way out.
And now back with us in his regular weekly time slot, fresh off of his wedding anniversary with his lovely wife, his former Patriots Pro Bowl running back, Tony Collins. Hey, Tony, welcome back to the show.
Hi, Tony.
How you doing, Chris and Bob? Vacation was fantastic, man.
Yeah, I saw some of the pictures. It looked like you were in a pretty exotic location. Good for you.
Yeah, down in the Bahamas, enjoying my 10-year anniversary.
Nice.
So, Tony, we want to start off our time with you tonight and obviously getting your thoughts on the Patriots draft. So how do you feel about the two former University of Georgia Bulldogs you got in Isaiah Wynn and Sony Michel?
You know, overall, I thought we did well. I liked the little scat back receiver they got from Miami. I think he'll fit in real good. I was kind of disappointed. I knew the Patriots kind of wanted to get a quarterback. The O-lineman from Georgia, I think he's going to do great for us. But I mean, I think they had a chance. Now, in my opinion, I think one of the most explosive kids that's coming out of the draft is the kid from Louisville, Lamar Jackson, and we actually had a chance to get him, and we picked Sonny from Georgia, which I think he'll be a great fit as well. Coming out of the backfield, he can catch the ball well. He's a good running back, but I just thought we have enough running backs right now. We picked up the kid from I think from Cincinnati. I'm not sure what his name is, but I just thought we had a chance to get an explosive player, and they missed that opportunity with Lamar Jackson. That's just my opinion, but overall, I thought they did well in the draft. They kind of put some needs out there that we needed. So we'll see what happens.
Bob, questions for Tony?
Tony, you and I talked a couple of weeks ago about their defense going into this draft, and there's never going to be a problem scoring points in New England, but they needed someone to rush the passer, Tony, and they really didn't address it. They got a very good cornerback in the second round. I think Dawson from Florida is going to be very good coverage-wise, but, Tony, they still need to rush the passer. They haven't addressed it yet.
Yeah, I think one of the things that they're going to do now, because they haven't addressed it, they didn't address it in the draft. You know how the Belichick's going to wheel and deal. I still see us making a trade somewhere down the line or trying to get a veteran pass rusher because they didn't address the need on defense during the draft. Overall, I thought they did okay, but that was one of the things where you just you don't understand. You know, if you need a pass rusher, why not get one instead of? And I'm not knocking Sonny at all. You know, I think he's a great running back, but I think the need was. I think there would have been a couple guys in that first round where they could have picked up. I'm not sure, but the kid from Boston College, I don't know if he went in the second round or not, but I think he did. I think he's one of those rushers that we could have definitely brought in, and he's right there from Boston College too.
And, Tony, we haven't talked in 2 weeks, and the whole thing, I have to pick your brain about this Saquon Barkley. There's not one person I've talked to that doesn't think he's going to succeed and succeed well. Knowing what you know about the Giants, a very experienced quarterback, Tony, and some great offensive weapons with Beckham, et cetera, how do you think they're going to use this guy, and do you think there'll be any learning curve for him?
Well, first, before we get to the Giants, let's talk about the Cleveland Browns right quick.
Sure. Go.
They had an opportunity to get Barkley, number one, the first, which he is the best player in the whole entire draft, hands down. Barkley is. Why not pick that guy up, and then you still have a shot on your fourth pick to get a quarterback? I just knew they were going to get Barkley. It just didn't make any sense. And I'm not saying Baker Mayfield is not a legit quarterback, but I think Sam Darnold is a better quarterback than Baker Mayfield. I think, my opinion though. But I just think Cleveland I think they blew it again. They had a chance to get Barkley, and they had a chance to get a legit quarterback in the fourth pick. But going on to the Giants, man, the Giants I think are going to do well. They drafted an offensive lineman that's pretty strong. And like I said before, Barkley, hands down, is the best player coming out of this draft. The kid has all the tools. I think he's like 230, and he runs a 4.4, 4.5 40. He's just an explosive player. Can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's a good blocker. I think he can do as well or even better than Elliott from Dallas. No question in my mind. So Giants got a real good pick, and Giants are going to be strong this year with Barkley running that ball. If Eli Manning can stay healthy, they're going to be tough to beat.
Tony, there's been a story circulating that was out on ESPN.com around the Patriots, and we talked a little bit about this at the top of the show, where the Patriots were contemplating a blockbuster deal with the Giants to trade all the way up to number 2 if Mayfield had not been selected by the Browns, that they were going to take him, which sort of shocks me. And like I say, Bob and I were talking about it at the top of the show. Baker Mayfield doesn't seem like a Patriots sort of guy. Right, as Bob was saying, the Patriots sort of are a system, team. Right, you plug a guy in, he's going to fit into their system. He's going to be, and fit into a certain mold. I would have been stunned if the Patriots would have gone all the way up there just to get Baker Mayfield. Would that have surprised you, or do you think that he could have fit in there?
I would have been. I've been stunned like you, and I fell out of my chair if they would have did something like that. If you're gonna go up all the way to the number 2 pick, why not get Chubbs from North Carolina State so we can rush the passer? We don't need a quarterback right now. We don't need a number 1 quarterback. And honestly speaking, Chris, I really don't know how true that is. I've heard it through the grapevine, people I talk with, that maybe the agent is making that up to make Baker Mayfield look a little bit better than he is, but I don't know why he would do that. That doesn't make sense. But I would have fell out of my chair if New England would have did something like that to draft a quarterback like that high to trade up, and I don't know what they would have to do to get that. But at the same time, I mean, why would you do something like that to get Baker Mayfield, and you just got rid of Jimmy G, which if he would have stayed there, then you wouldn't have to worry about a quarterback. So I really don't know how much truth to that statement is. It could be, but I doubt it very seriously if it is true. But then again, why would the agent make up something like that? So you got to question, whatever. But I couldn't see that happening. I know personnel that the Patriots are a little bit better than that. We need a defensive end, so we don't need a quarterback right now. We need Chubbs from North Carolina State to come in and play for us. That I would understand, for them to do something like that to get Chubbs. That I understand, but Baker Mayfield, I'm gonna tell you, man, and I'm not saying this, and I hope it doesn't happen, but the kid reminds me a lot of Johnny Manziel. He's a little cocky. Yep. He's been in a little trouble before, and who knows what his personal life is. And that's one of the things you got to understand about drafting the number 1 quarterback, or drafting a quarterback number 1. That kid needs to be settled and surrounded by good people. And that's something that Johnny Manziel wasn't. He wasn't a settled down quarterback. He wasn't surrounding himself with good people. And you being the number 1 pick, and Baker's going to get it, man. Being that number 1 pick, he's going to have people coming from all angles, and women coming from all angles. If he's not rooted and grounded with a good character, it's going to be tough. And also you got to think now the pressure's on him to go to Cleveland. When's the last time Cleveland drafted a number 1 quarterback and it's been successful? I can't remember. So that's how I feel about it, man. So just my opinion now.
Tony, I want to switch gears a little bit with you. And the last segment of the show that we do every week is our Spotlight on the Positive. And Bob and I love sharing stories about the great things that, whether it's a current player or the alumni players are doing out there in their communities or around the world. And like the great things that you do for kids trying to go off to college. But who are some of the players that you played with or that who are very active doing great things out there in their communities?
I do a tournament with Darryl Green every year. Darryl does. He raises a whole bunch of money up. He's actually out of the Richmond, Virginia area where he does that tournament in every June, and he raises a lot of money for helping a lot of kids, almost pretty much like me, helping them go off to college, helping them with different kids coming out in high school, so they can have places to go for them, so they don't get into the drug scene. Daryl does a great job, and he does a fantastic tournament up in Richmond, Virginia. And you know what, Chris? There's so many more guys that are out there that's doing a whole bunch of stuff, man. And that's the thing. What happens is we dwell on the negative so much. Whenever there's a guy that does something wrong or does something bad that's played in the league or playing in the league, I mean, that's going to be elevated and shown on the front page and, on the radio. But the guys that are doing these tournaments and raising money for a whole bunch of stuff, and it's just not the big names. There's a lot of guys that I know that are not big names, played maybe 4 or 5 years in the league, but they still go back and help their community. Reggie Branch is actually my nephew. He played for the Redskins back in the 80s as well. He was on that Super Bowl team with Doug Williams. Does a lot in his area down in Stanford, Florida, where I grew up at. Well, I didn't grow up there. That's where I was born, and that's where he grew up. And I can keep naming guys, and that's some of the things, man, that I wish that those things would be on the front page, because there are a lot of good guys that are out there doing their best to trying to help the young kids, the future. And man, it's my little thing that I do in my little small hometown. It's not even compared to what some of these guys are doing. Of course, they're in a big city where they can raise a whole bunch of money. But what we do up in Penn Yan, New York, man, I'm very proud of, and we're getting a lot of good sponsors to come up there, and it's just all about giving back. We were very fortunate. I know I was, to play the game that I love. Since I was 9 years old, and to have the opportunity to give back it's what life is all about. I think you're not really winning in life if you're not giving back, and so that's how I live. That's how I'll live forever, because my mom and dad always taught me when you give, you're going to always receive. And so that's what I want to do. I want to give so I can receive, so I can give some more.
There you go. Tony, before we let you go, remind everybody how you're giving.
TonyCollinsFoundation.org. This year is going to be our 10-year anniversary, helping kids go off to college, helping kids in the community, and just helping them to grow up to be good men and women of the great country that we live in.
Tony, take care, my friend. We always are grateful for the time we get to spend with you. We look forward to doing it again next week. In between now and then, all the best to you and your family.
Take it easy.
God bless you guys. You guys have a fantastic week.
Thanks, Tony. You too. That's former Patriots Pro Bowl running back Tony Collins. We've got our next guest, Paul Alexander, hanging on the line. We're going to get to him right on the other side of this quick station break.
Hear NFL legends, players, coaches, and media members from around the country sharing their insights and stories with us year-round. Here on Thursday Night Tailgate.
And now back in making his 18th appearance with us here on Thursday Night Tailgate is AT&T Sportsnet host and TNT Hall of Famer Paul Alexander. Pittsburgh sports fans can hear and see Paul hosting pre- and post-game shows for the Pirates and the Penguins on AT&T Sportsnet Pittsburgh. Also covers the Steelers as well. He's been a fantastic contributor to the show over the years, and a guy we always look forward to getting to spend time with, because not only does he do a tremendous job, sharing his insights and stories with us, but he is one of the great people that you get to meet in this life, and we're very thankful for him and glad to have him back with us tonight here on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, Paul, Chris, and Bob, how are you, my friend?
Hi, Paul.
Gentlemen, what a pleasure. Thank you.
So, Paul, we're going to start our time with you tonight by getting your thoughts on the draft, and I got to get your 2 cents on who the Steelers picked. I was a little surprised when Roger Goodell read the name of Terrell Edmonds, safety from Virginia Tech, in the first round. Your thoughts on him?
You know what I love about the Steelers on draft day is they ignore needs, they ignore kind of the obvious, and they take the best players available. And what I've learned to do, and we're all hypercritical on draft day, and I think that we forget that when most great college players are having their day on a Saturday, they're on the field with maybe 4 to 5 at most other NFL players. So how they're going to assimilate and adjust to a bunch of NFL players, you know, that are on the field that same day, we can't get lost in the fact that a lot of these guys that are drafted pretty high up really don't pan out. A lot of free agents and a lot of undrafted, you know, rookies end up being superstars. And, you know, we have Tom Brady and Antonio Brown, the 6th-round draft picks, you know, right now, you know, the best at their positions in the league or whatever. I try not to get too worked up on draft day because it's really a 2 or 3 year, and, you know, we're talking about a safety right here, right, from Virginia Tech and Terrell Edmonds. The last time the Steelers took a safety in the first round, they had in the draft Troy. He had a really shaky rookie year. And I was hosting, you know, a call-in talk show at the time, and all I got was, what a bust. You know, what are these guys thinking? Why would they draft him in the first round? Why would they move up in the draft to get him? And I think, hopefully, I don't want to assume or speak for you, but Troy Polamalu was a first ballot NFL Hall of Famer, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, but it took about 3 years before Steeler fans appreciated the fact that, you know, the hierarchy within that Steelers front office knew exactly what they were doing. I'm going to have to reserve judgment. It was kind of a curious pick, but this guy, you watch him ball hawk, you watch his anticipation, you watch his overall understanding of the game. I like the pick because the Steelers really, I think offensively, are still going to be among the top 4 or 5 offenses in the NFL because of their personnel, the O-line, the talent that they have. They were a little porous. I mean, they scored a whole bunch of points, you know, against Jacksonville and still managed to lose the game. So anything that they did defensively to improve, I'm okay with.
So I'm guessing the other safety that they drafted in the 5th round was a guy you're also pretty happy about, Marcus Allen from your alma mater, Penn State.
Oh, why you're going to expose me for being a big Penn State guy? Yeah. You know, he also could play corner. This guy, I think, was a steal in the 5th round. And yeah, I'm kind of going to be a little homerish. And, yeah, I'm a big fan. I thought that was a great pick. And when you have position flexibility and you can play a little corner, you know, obviously you protect as a safety. You know, this guy's an athlete. This guy's a playmaker. So, yeah, I think that's fantastic. And now think about the majority. I mean, this is crazy about the NFL right now. It's most 3rd and 1s. I mean, you see empty backfields and 5 wide receivers. 3rd and 1. So you better have as many capable, talented, competent defensive backs as you can have if you want to compete in today's NFL. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of the 5th round pick. Also, and I know we're going to get to Rudolph Mason, right? We're going to talk about that.
Yes.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that pick.
Yes.
I have not understood one single since they had Ben Roethlisberger. I have not one single. Why would you waste a single draft pick on a quarterback when you have Ben Roethlisberger? Especially when you had Charlie Batch. I mean, they were just so solid at that position. And, you know, people go, oh, yeah, Charlie Batch, yeah. That's when they needed it. Went to Baltimore when Ben was hurt and beat Baltimore at Baltimore when Baltimore was, like really, really good. So, yeah, they recovered there. But here's what they've done. And I'm kind of mixed about Ben. I love him as a player. Anything he does or says not playing, I'm not a fan. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
when he's on the field playing, he's one of my favorite quarterbacks of all time. He's a winner, a competitor, a playmaker. I mean, he's everything you could absolutely dream of as a quarterback. Any single time he opens his mouth when he's not playing, I'm really not a fan. So, you know what they did with Mason Rudolph? You know, this whole nonsense of, you know, I'm going to go year to year. I'm not sure. I don't know what I'm going to do. He was holding the Steelers hostage. Because that next, you know, he has this year and one more year at about $19 million. That's a nice chunk. And I thought he was content, you know, playing out that string. Now that they drafted Mason Rudolph, what did he say? I want to play another 3 to 5 years. But, you know, last year he said, I'm going to go year to year. So he was trying to really, I think, set himself up for that next big, huge contract. I think he's had his last, you know, really big contract. He's under contract for 2 more years, this year and 1 more. And you see the situation now, and I love, and Bob, you probably know this far better than I do, considering your geographic situation. I really think that, you know, Belichick and Brady got themselves into a weird scenario where Garoppolo was the guy that Belichick really wanted to be the next one. You know, I'm going to go to maybe a Joe Montana situation where they have the next guy, and they had to move on. And for whatever reason, Bob Kraft stepped in and said, "No, we're not moving past Tom Brady just yet." So the Garoppolo Belichick thing happened, and it's kind of weird. And I really think the Steelers did this, but we're not going to go there. Ben's not going to be the one that decides who our next quarterback is. We are. And Mason Rudolph, in their estimation, and mine as well, was a first-round talent they got in the 3rd round. So I really think for the first time since Ben's there, they identified who they believe is their next franchise quarterback. And I hope it's not for another, you know, I hope he's not until like 3 years from now. I hope Ben has another, you know, 2 strong years where they can be a legitimate AFC Super Bowl contender. And I think Ben gives them that. But at the same time, you don't want your franchise quarterback dictating what you do in the draft, what you do, period. They're the players. You have to be the ones that are in control. And I think with Mason Rudolph now, the Steelers are in control. Ben doesn't dictate what happens going forward.
Questions for Paul?
I think, Paul, that's all great points, and that's exactly what I wanted to bring up was the whole Mason Rudolph thing. They're obviously a very, very good successor, but again, like Brady, you're right, they almost hold the teams hostage. You can't really plan too much, but you have to a little bit. I mean, that's why they made this guy. It's such a win-now league, Paul. In one respect, you say, my goodness, 3rd-round pick, we could get a game-changer now. But, again, and you know, Paul, as well as I do, 1 or 2 hits. Again, his health, I think Roethlisberger is the type of quarterback, what's going to get him out of this league is not his skills eroding at all. It's going to be his health. And that could be, it could be game 6. It could be 2 years from now. You just don't know. But this is the price you pay for success, Paul. But that was pretty much what I was going to ask you. Rudolph at 3rd pick, couldn't you get a guy in there now where they would help you win now? But obviously they are thinking they got to start doing something because of either what Ben said during the year or his health in general.
Yeah, and what they don't want, and this is where I think, you know, when the players make, you know, excess of $20 million a year, they kind of become the ones that dictate what happens, not the coaches, not the owners, because of the salary cap and what they dictate. This now takes the control away from Ben, because last year he shocked everybody when he said, you know what, I'm going to go year to year. You know what? Okay. So we are now, and this is the part where they called his bluff. It's like a big poker game. And, you know, Ben showed his hand, yeah, I'm going to go year to year, so maybe you're going to have to step up and pay me a little more to keep me or whatever. And they went, you know what? Maybe we'll go ahead, considering your age, everything else. You know, the next play will be your last. So we're going to go ahead and be prepared just in case. And the picks that I hate at the draft are the 5th and 6th round quarterback picks that are never going to be your next one. Because the one thing that we know, and as a lifelong Pittsburgh guy, the Steelers had gone from 1979 to 2005 without a Super Bowl. Reason being, that period, they didn't have a franchise quarterback. They had some pretty good ones. I my grave, loving Buffy Brister, I thought he was really underrated and not well supported, but, maybe not a franchise quarterback, although keep in mind, John Elway's first Super Bowl, it was Buffy that won the first 6 games of that season. And one of my favorite sports quotes of all time, they gave me the keys to the Ferrari and I didn't wreck it. And then John Elway got healthy and he, took him to the Super Bowl. But, the great Bubster was there. But, Cordell, 4 coordinators in 4 years, and there were some things that just didn't really work. But if you don't have the proper head coach and a franchise quarterback, unless you're the 2001, Baltimore Ravens, that ridiculous defense, and Troy Dilfer is your quarterback, you're not winning a Super Bowl without that combination. So I applaud the Steelers in this draft for, I think, finally identifying someone that could be their next.
Paul, before we let you go, it's 90 degrees here in New England today, so I got to switch over to baseball for 1 second. I have to ask you about the Pirates. They're over 500 at this point. I didn't think probably they would see 500 all year, but they're holding their own. A few good performances by some guys. You got to be happy with a guy like that, Trevor Williams, and a couple other guys. But what's the word out there right now? What's the feeling, and is there reason to be excited maybe for the future, Paul? Or is that a stupid question?
No, not at all. I think from a public relations standpoint, the Pirates did themselves a horrible disservice. How about when you're the only team in Major League Baseball not to acquire a Major League free agent in the offseason? Who would that be?
True.
That would be your Pittsburgh Pirates. That's embarrassing to me because there's some holes to fill. However, when I see Colin Moran play third base, came over in the Garrett Cole trade. When I see a Corey Dickerson who was acquired from Tampa Bay, who's basically replacing the former National League MVP, I get kind of excited because to death of Huntington is the great Major League general manager without a budget to really be, come on. How difficult is it to win World Series in in Boston and then Chicago when you have unlimited spending and there's no salary cap? I think everybody identifies pretty readily who the great players are. And like the Yankees are now back to being the Yankees. When you go get Giancarlo Stanton, and you already have Judge, and you just go put these all-star teams together as your everyday lineup. It really should be pretty easy, to be fantastic. But the thing I love about the Pirates right now is they're exceeding expectations, and it's early.
Mm-hmm.
We're thinking about, and I throw this out a lot on the air. If you're a marathon runner and you're lead at the 4-mile mark, I don't think anyone's going to really go ahead and pencil you in as the winner.
Mm.
They've done a nice job. You can't have a great finish without a good start. I guess you can if you just go completely, ridiculous toward the end. But I've been pleasantly surprised. I think that pitching is now kind of been exposed a little bit. I actually worked a game where Nick Kingham, threw a perfect game for 6 2/3, and then, was able to throw a one-hit, 7 innings of shutout baseball in his major league debut. That's exciting. They have some talent. They're a little thin because they don't go out and spend the money that they should, and that's what has fans here in Pittsburgh so upset. I mean, they would really love to feel that their ownership is all in to win. And right now, the fan base doesn't feel that the ownership really cares about winning, as opposed to cashing the revenue sharing checks and the big national TV revenue checks that they get. They feel the ownership here only cares about that and is really all in terms of winning. So that's kind of tough. I mean, that's you would think if any of the three of us were lucky enough to win, I don't know, 3 or 4 lotteries and able to buy a major league franchise, don't you think we would do everything we could to win a World Series? Like, wouldn't that be the dream?
Yep.
So when you have someone that has someone has the wherewithal to own a Major League Baseball team, and you don't get the sense that winning is a priority, it's hard. It's hard on a fan base because they all, and again, it's not their money. So we want to spend. We as sports fans want to spend the ownership's money how we see fit and forget that it's their money. But the Pirates didn't do a very good job in the offseason of convincing the fan base that they were all in to win. And that, to me, is going to be tough to overcome, despite the fact they've exceeded expectations out of the gate.
Paul, before we let you go, remind our listeners how they can stay up to date with all the great things that you're doing and follow you either online and on social media as well.
Well, yeah, check us out on AT&T Sportsnet. That's where we do Pirates pre- and post-game. P. Alexander 44 on Twitter, and Paul Alexander on Facebook and Instagram. And I just want to commend you guys for doing such a great job of keeping it real, keeping it positive, and just telling all the great stories out there, all the great former athletes that are just doing such great things with charities and other things. I just love being a part of the great thing that you guys do.
Oh, we appreciate you saying that very much, Paul. We're privileged to get to know you and have you as part of the show as often as you've joined us. We can't thank you enough for being generous with your time. Hope you'll do it again real soon, my friend.
Anytime, Chris, Bob. Take care. Love you guys.
Take care.
Take care, Paul. That is the great Paul Alexander, at PAlexander44 on Twitter. Give him a follow. Great stuff as always, Bob. Love having Paul Alexander as often as we have. Great guy.
Hall of Famer. We love him, and that's why he's one of our best.
Indeed. All right, now back with us here on Thursday Night Tailgate as our next guest, Stacey Mack. Let me remind you about Stacey's background. He's from Orlando, Florida, played his college ball at Temple, and over the 2 seasons he was there, he rushed for nearly 1,600 yards, had 334 receiving yards, and he scored 16 touchdowns. He was an undrafted free agent signed by the Jacksonville Jaguars in 1999, and he played running back in the NFL from 99 to 2003 for the Jaguars and the Texans. Over the course of his NFL career, he rushed for nearly 1,800 yards, added another 300 yards receiving and 500 return yards, and he scored 24 touchdowns. His high school alma mater, Boone High School down in Orlando, inducted him into their Hall of Fame almost exactly 4 years ago, and we are honored that he is back with us tonight here on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, Stacey, Chris, and Bob, thanks for coming back on the show.
Hey, Stacey.
Thank you for having me, guys. Chris and Bob, good to hear from you guys.
Oh, you too.
So, Stacey, I want to start by going back to that wonderful night 4 years ago, like I say, almost to the day of your high school alma mater down there in Orlando, inducting you into their Hall of Fame. What's it like going back to that and being recognized like that by your high school?
It was a great feeling, like awesome feeling to know the hard work they know I put in, and being a 3-sport athlete there at Boone High School, it was just a great feeling. And seeing a bunch of people, my Coach Ziegler was there, and just people I haven't seen in years. It was just an awesome feeling to go back and see those people that cheered me on, taught me, 'cause Coach Ziegler taught me everything.
And Stacey, looking at your time at Temple, right? 97, 98, some lean years for the Temple football program. You guys won, I think, 5 games over the 2 seasons you were there. But 2 of those 5 wins, and I'm from Pittsburgh, right? So 2 of those 5 wins were against Pitt. What was it about Pitt that you seem to have their number?
I don't know. I don't know what it was about Pitt. I guess pretty much the same talent. I don't know. In-state rival. We always got up extra hype and had extra long practices against Pitt. And I just don't know what it was about Pitt that we would go in and win. So. But we had some great battles with the Panthers, though.
And so you signed with the Jaguars as an undrafted free agent. Why Jacksonville?
I really just was so hurt sitting there watching the '99 draft, and I don't know. It just made sense. And going into Jacksonville, I didn't know they had that many. I didn't even know they had that many backs, to be honest with you. I mean, they had Fred, they had James, they had Tavian Banks, Chris Howard, George Jones, and I was the 6th man on board. So, I mean, really I prayed about it, and that's where I landed in Jacksonville. So.
Bob, questions for Stacey?
Stacey, it's great to speak with you again. I want to go back a little bit, like Chris said about Temple. I mean, this is a team. You're a guy down in Florida, and wanted to know your road to Temple, how that all came about. I know it's not just some good sports programs there, but it's a very good academic institution. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. How was that experience?
It was a great experience. Philly was, being from Orlando, Florida, I was never in a big city like that. So it was a different experience for me. But me and my big defensive tackle that went to junior college with me in Mississippi, we took a visit to Temple, Larry Chester. And Larry played with the Dolphins and the Colts for many years. And we took a recruiting visit down there when we were in junior college. And we just felt like this was the place, we want to be. So we both end up signing a scholarship there at Temple.
And Stacey, your 3rd year with the Jaguars is when you really started getting a decent workload. You had carried the ball like 60 times in 99 and 2000. All of a sudden, 200 carries in the 01 season. I know all guys, they want the ball, they want to be the man, but how did you feel at the end of that season after such a workload?
I felt like, I put in a lot of work. My second year, it's just my second year was, I think I went out on injury reserve that year. But I put in a lot of work. I know Fred was a starter, but I just wanted to be a solid backup. And not knowing that Fred was going to go down or anything, I just wanted to be somebody that can come in, and when Fred's tired or something, I can come in and hold the load down and continue to carry the ball, and not knowing that he was going to go out that soon. So I just had to prepare myself. After he went out, I had to just prepare myself to be the starting running back.
Stacey, your rookie season, you guys go 14-2 and all the way to the AFC Championship game, unfortunately coming up short against the Tennessee Titans. And the Titans beat you guys 3 times that season. All 3 of your losses that season came against the Titans. What was it about those guys you couldn't get past?
When I go down and I went down to the first game, the Titans game, Tom Coughlin this year. I went to the first game, and the same thing happened. The Titans beat Jacksonville at home. I don't know what it was about the Titans. I know every time we played them, Coach Coughlin, the practice extended at least 45 minutes. I just don't think we did what we were better. We every time we play, we mix up the game plan. I just didn't think back then in '99 we just didn't do what we do best, and that's run the ball. We got out of our game plan really, and turnovers killed us too.
And Stacey, you mentioned Fred Taylor a little bit ago, and he's a guy that's sort of knocking on the door to the Hall of Fame. 17th all-time in rushing yards. He was 14th at the time when he retired. And not only does he seems to not get any love from the football writers, amazingly, while he played, he only got to the Pro Bowl once, even though he rushed for over 1,100 yards 7 times. What was it about Fred that people seem to, constantly overlook what he was accomplishing out there on the football field?
No, well, I was down in Western Florida, and Fred lives not too far. I went to the Cleveland Clinic, and I just had a chance to speak with him. And I don't understand why Fred don't get the love. When Jim Brown and, say this is one of the best backs I ever seen, Fred was amazing. Sometimes I sit back and watch his highlight film, and just, if you used to build a running back, you would build him in a Fred Taylor mode. I mean, speed, power, elusiveness, make you miss in a box. Freddie T had it all, and I hope he deserved to be in the Pro Bowl. He was just one of the best. I think the market in Jacksonville was kind of small. If he was anywhere else, any other big market, he'd have been Pro Bowl plenty of times.
And Stacey, as you talked about the stable of running backs that the Jaguars had when you got there, right? Between Taylor and Stewart and George Jones, who had a great college career, and the other guys that were already on the roster. How did you make a name for yourself? How did you break into that group of guys?
Something that they're talking about taking away, special teams. That's how I made the team. And I led the preseason in rushing. And Coach Coughlin's like, well, we can't put you on practice squad because he got teams vouching for you. So we got to put you on the active roster as a rookie. And special teams, I had a kick return for a touchdown in the preseason. I put a pretty good hit on Joe Horn in the preseason on a punt return. And that's exactly how I ended up making a team for the Jaguars.
And Stacey, in late 2001, in the 2001 season, you sort of went off on a 3-week stretch against Cleveland, Minnesota, and Kansas City. You had 351 yards rushing. You scored 3 touchdowns. Did that prove to you that you could have been a feature back in the league?
Well, yeah, it did. It did. And I was upset because Coach Coughlin, he benched me on the Seattle game. I had fumbled twice out in Seattle. And he had benched me for like a 4 or 5 game stretch. And, I told him, look, Coach, I'm not going to ever put the ball on the ground again. And he gave me an opportunity in the Cincinnati game to come in and play. And from then, it's just like I had to hold on the ball and just be that player for the team because the team needed me, especially on that stretch.
So following that stretch, in the next year, you only got double-digit carries twice. But did you ever, go to the team or your agent or something and say, look, I can be a feature back in this league. I'm just not getting the opportunities here in Jacksonville, and I'm not because there's Fred Taylor and there's James Stewart and these guys here. Did you ever want to try to go somewhere else where you might have had an opportunity to be the guy?
Well, following that year, the coaches came to me. Coach Gerald Ingram, a running backs coach, and Coach Coughlin said, we're going to have to split the carries with you and Fred. And I was like, no, don't do that. Just keep it the way it is. You need me on short yardage or goal line because I didn't want no tension in between Fred and I. We were such good friends. I want Fred to get his carries, and we'll just when we feel we need to swap in and out, that's the way they let us do it. I mean, I right now I think of it how much of a business it was, but I still was the kid just happy to be there and playing football. Of course, that next year I went on and thought I got an opportunity to start with the Texans, but it just, the offensive line, the coordinator, it just wasn't the same.
Bob, more for Stacey?
And Stacey, about the legacy of Coach Coughlin, you mentioned obviously up here in New York, he built a team, and and won Super Bowls. And back then, are you surprised that he's back in the game, Stacey, and still sharp as a whip and getting results? And then he had a disciplinarian approach, but seems like it's still working in certain areas.
It is. And no, I'm not surprised because this guy, he shouldn't have, like Mr. Weaver said, that's one of the biggest mistakes, even letting Tom Coughlin go out of Jacksonville. And that's probably one of the reasons I ended up leaving to go to the Texans because, this guy, he didn't tell you nothing wrong. He wanted you to just practice. He always said, you practice hard, the game's going to come easy. And that's what I started doing, practicing hard, running hard. And the game did come easy, studying. And, no, I'm not. He brought a whole new attitude back to Jacksonville. And it's good to see that old attitude that, if you work hard, then the game is going to be easy. If you work hard during practice, the game is going to be easy. And he brought that whole attitude back, and it's good to see that back in Jacksonville. Toughness. He loved toughness.
And finally, Stacey, you're out of the league by the age of 30. We talk to guys weekly, and we always ask players like yourself the adjustment to civilian life, shall we say, after playing football since you're a kid. How tough was that for you come 2004, 2005, an entirely new life?
It was very tough. All I knew since I was 5 years old was football. And it was really, really tough on me. Kind of went through a depression stage here because at nighttime when I wasn't playing, I was feeling like I'm running the ball. I'm waking up like I've been in a game or something. And it's for the first 5 years after I retired, it was really, really tough on me. I mean, I wanted to be in the game, which I had an opportunity to go. Coach Coughlin brought me up to New York to work out. But I just couldn't make it through the workouts, and I knew pretty much my career was done then. So, yeah.
Stacey, staying on the subject of Tom Coughlin, the Jaguars have always had a great deal of success against my Steelers, right? And does Tom Coughlin have something? Has he figured something out about how to beat the Steelers consistently? Because it just seems like every time I'm watching the Steelers and the Jags, it's the Jags coming out on top.
They always coming out. I think he just that week he stays in. I think he's dissecting film. When he was coaching there, he used to be the first one there and the last one to leave, especially the Steelers and the Titans games. So I don't know. They match physical to physical. I mean, it's just a great matchup. I don't know why Jacksonville are always on top. Mistakes here, mistakes there from the Steelers, and the playoff game was, wow, that was unbelievable there.
Yes, indeed. So let's get your thoughts on what you saw from the Jaguars, in the draft. How do you feel about how they did, and what's your expectation for them this coming season?
I think they boasted their D-lineman, getting a big guy from Florida, and got another safety. I think got a couple good special team guys, a lot of role guys. I think this season is going to be the turning point for Blake Bortles. I think he's going to have a really, really good season this year. And, I listen to all the sports writers, ESPN, and they're talking about how much a franchise you need a quarterback. But what it really starts with those guys up front. You can't do nothing if you ain't got 5 guys to protect the franchise quarterback. And I just like the way Jacksonville, what they're doing up front, both sides of the ball.
So, Blake Bortles is the key, right? I mean, quarterback obviously being one of the most important positions on the field, maybe the most important position on the field. And Bortles has had certainly his ups and downs over the years that he's been in Jacksonville. I think we saw some good. I think we saw some head-scratching moments in the playoffs this past season. What are you seeing from him, or what are you hearing about him that leads you to believe that maybe this is the year that he puts it all together?
I'm hearing that he put in a lot of work, a lot of film work, and that's where it's gonna, it's gonna show on the film, on the field. and studying film, just putting the work in. And I always tell guys, I play with a guy that should have been a great Pro Bowler, and it was just the coaches. David Carr should have been. He was 2 times better than his brother, and it just the coaching staff, and it just wouldn't let him just develop. They threw him in there from day one, So it depends on the coaches and how much time you put the work in, So that's why I think Bortles it's going to be a big year for him.
Stacey, before we let you go, let our listeners know, A, what are you doing now, and B, how can they stay up to date with all the great things you're doing over social media?
Well, you catch me on Facebook. That's pretty much all I'm on Facebook. Just watching these kids grow, and I got my son is his senior year for Mississippi College basketball, and he's looking to try to take the next step up. Junior's 6'8", 220. And he's looking to go pro, and that's what I'm pretty much doing, trying to get him situated, get him help to go pro. And but you can always catch me on Facebook. I'm always on Facebook, just delivering positive messages.
There you go. Well, Stacey, thank you so much for taking time out of your night to come back and be a part of the show. We hope you'll come back and join us much sooner next time. It's been great catching up with you.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me, and y'all stay blessed, and it's always good to hear from you guys again.
I appreciate you, Stacey. All the best to you and your family, my friend. We'll catch up soon.
All right. Thank you very much, y'all.
Thanks, Stacey. That is former Temple and Jacksonville Jaguars running back Stacey Mack. We've got our next guest, Jim Arnold, hanging on the line. We're going to get to Jim on the other side of these words about Dan Pastorini and DP Quality Foods.
Most folks are familiar with Dan Pastorini's accomplishments on the football field or in race cars. But what most don't know? Dan's family background in the restaurant business. For 37 years, Dan's parents, Dante and Dorothy, owned and operated Pastorini's Longhorn Restaurant. So the Pastorini family has a long history of making great tasting food from family recipes. Dan and his partners want to bring some of that to you with their Texas-style rub, Texas-style hickory rub, and their garlic and herb seasoning. First introduced back in 2011, Dan's Texas-style rub immediately began winning awards, taking home the first-place trophy for best ribs at the Pasadena Livestock Show and Barbecue Cook-Off. They did it again at the 2012 Texas Ranger Wounded Warrior Cook-Off, and the awards just keep on coming. Check out Dan's line of spices online at dpqualityfoods.com. That's dpqualityfoods.com. And take what you put on the grill to a whole new level.
You're listening to Thursday Night Tailgate with Chris Mascaro and Bob Lazari, where NFL legends live on. Back to you, boys.
Him, he's alive.
And now back with us here on Thursday Night Tailgate is Jim Arnold. Let me remind you about Jim's background. He's from Dalton, Georgia, which is just a little bit north of me here in Atlanta. Played his college ball at Vanderbilt, where he was an All-American punter. He was the first Vanderbilt player to be named All-Conference all 4 years he was there. He made 6 All-American teams, including the Associated Press first team as a senior in 1982, averaging a then-record 45.8 yards per punt and leading the Commodores to a #1 national ranking in net punting. He was a 5th-round draft pick by the Kansas City Chiefs in 1983, played in the NFL from 83 to 1994 for the Chiefs, Lions, and Dolphins. He was selected to the Pro Bowl in back-to-back years of 1988 and 89. Pro Football Weekly awarded him the Golden Toe Award in 1987 for being the league's best punter or kicker. In 84 and 85, he led the league in number of punts, and in 84, he also led the league in average yards per punt at 44.9 yards per punt and total punting yards as well. 2009, he was elected to the Vanderbilt Athletics Hall of Fame, and we're excited he is back with us again tonight here on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, Jim, Chris, and Bob, thanks for coming back on the show.
Hi, Jim.
Hey, you're welcome. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Jim, I want to start out our time with you tonight by going back to, time before you even landed at Vandy. And I was reading today that Tennessee, Georgia Tech, Arkansas, Kansas City, just to name a few, were sort of after you. How did Vandy end up being your choice?
Well, I came to visit here, and I really kind of fell in love with the place. And the head coach said, hey, look, we've got a scholarship for a punter open, and I feel 95% sure I'm going to give it to you. And so I was like, okay, I'll leave. I'll go out of here. I'll go home. I'm going to go to Vanderbilt. Well, I don't hear anything for like 2 or 3 weeks. And I thought, what's going on? So I called up, and then it became a week-to-week thing, and it was me and a guy from Georgia, or a guy from Tennessee, me and a guy from Kentucky, me and a guy from Alabama. And that goes on for 3 or 4 weeks. So finally, when I called, I talked to the coach. I just said, I got an idea. Since y'all can't seem to make up your mind, why don't you just bring all of us to Nashville, let us kick the ball, and I can tell you who you're going to choose after that, because it's going to be me. And I was a little bold back then, but I wanted to play in the SEC. And so what ended up happening is about 2 days later, I got called and said, when can you sign? And I said, when can you come to Dalton, Georgia? So that's how that all went down.
And Jim, as I was looking over Vandy's record, right, when you were there, 79, tough year, 1-10. You guys go 2-9 the next year, 4-7 your junior year, starting to build something. 8-4 your senior year, including huge, in-state wins over Memphis and Tennessee. You end up beating Florida that year by a couple of points. Yep. Nearly knocked off Alabama. So what was it that George McIntyre, who was your head coach, what did he do that led to the improvement year after year when Vandy hadn't been over 500 but 2 times since 1959?
Well, 2 things I think are part of that, and I'll tell you why. Is he brought Watson Brown is our offensive coordinator. We had Doc Crease as our strength and conditioning coach, and Doc was a great motivator as well. But I think those 2 were 2 key cogs in our coaching system. But I think what George did so well is he let the coaches do their thing and coach. I mean, he was truly a head coach in that he let them handle their positions. He made corrections if they were needed to be made, and then let them work with the players the way they did. And I think George did a good job recruiting, because my freshman class all of us came from winning programs in high school. We hated that freshman year because of what we did record-wise, and all kind of hung together and said, our time's coming, and we're not going to go down this way. And we had some things happen for us that senior year, like you mentioned. Started out the year really good. Florida came in the early part of the season ranked. We were able to beat them at home, and I think that was a big lift that gave us going into the season. Played very confidently against Alabama, and then ended up beating Tennessee at home. So we felt like we could play against anybody. We might not have been the most talented group, but we had a bunch of guys who knew what they needed to do to prepare for that day to play against someone and beat them. And that was, I think those were the keys that I saw out of those teams.
And Jim, you guys had a couple of epic games against Tennessee in 81 and 82, and they were both, the biggest wins and the toughest loss, in those back-to-back years. Because in 81, you guys lose 38-34 on a sort of no-call pass interference in the end zone on the last play of the game where there was some early contact. And next year you guys come back and you win 28-21, which was only the 3rd time Vandy had beaten Tennessee in the last 22 years. So give us your thought. What do you remember about those 2 games?
Well, I'll tell you about, start with 81. That game at Tennessee. There are a couple of things, and gentlemen, if you ever get a hold of it, you can see it on film. We had a touchdown call back that was a go-ahead touchdown. Would have been a go-ahead touchdown in the game. It would have won the game, where they said our receiver was not on the line of scrimmage, and if you go back and look at it, if he's any more on it, he's off sides. By the way, he was a 3.0 engineer at our school, so I don't think he's a dummy lining up. And then we had a phantom catch down the field where a ball literally went through Willie Galt's hands, hit the ground, came back up, and they ruled it a catch down the field for them. Those are 2 key plays that I remember, but those are provable on film. That's not sour grapes. So, coming out of that game that year, we're going, wait a minute, this is not the big bad bear over here. We can beat them. And we got them at home. And, of course, our senior year, having them there here in Nashville, we had a lot of confidence going in the game. It wasn't overconfidence, but it was confidence going into the game to play against them. And the crowd was great. It was a rainy day. It was cool. And we ended up beating them at home. Should have beat them up there in 81, but it is what it is. It was a loss. And then we came back confidently in 82 and beat them at home. And what a great day that was. I mean, raining, we still had a ton of people there. The goalposts came down afterwards. You couldn't even walk on the field because everybody flooded the field. It was really a neat deal.
Bob, questions for Jim?
And, Jim, even before you got to Vanderbilt, I mean, you grew up in the 70s like I did, and soccer wasn't anywhere near the popular sport it is right now. How did you get into kicking footballs? And, I mean, was soccer there for you, or did you just come across it a different way?
It was really weird. I'll take you back, is that soccer at that time, I think, was just becoming a club sport when I was in high school. But I don't know why, but I've always been able to kick the ball. I can remember, back in those days when you grew up, you were out in the yard with the ball. We were not watching video games
right.
or doing stuff like that. You were out in the yard with the ball, and depending upon the season is what ball you had in hand. Well, in the summertime, it was easier to play, a game of wiffle ball or baseball or football. And for whatever reason, I was a little skinny, wiry guy who could, was decent as far as quickness. I wasn't fast by any stretch of the imagination. But I could kick the ball further than anybody else at the time. And so I was always on one, I was lucky to get picked first with some teams that I played on. And that kind of just continued. Now, when I grew up in, Little League football and then into junior high football, at the time in the state of Georgia, we did not have kicking. You either went for it on, like an extra point, or if on fourth down, you elected to turn the ball over. They moved it down the field. So my freshman year in high school, I'm coming in and I played multiple positions. So the coach says, okay, whoever wants to try out for punter, I want you all to go over here. We're going to have you guys kick and then whatever. So I go over, and at the time, not even having much instruction or any training on it, I was able to, I guess they thought I was kicking it better than anybody else and said, okay, you're going to go over here and be a punter. And I did that my freshman year. I had a couple of coaches on my high school staff that had some experience at the college level kicking, so a couple of little pointers here and there. And then my sophomore year moved on the varsity and as a starting job. But my freshman year, they didn't even let me play in the freshman games. They didn't want to do anything there. So anyway, that's kind of – and I was able to just year after year, in the summer I wasn't out punting all the balls like I was in college, but you'd go be out playing with somebody and all this kicking around a little bit. And then I was able to improve every year in high school. And then I guess it was about the beginning, after my sophomore year, I was seeing guys in high school who were signing these scholarships. I was a happy-go-lucky kid. I didn't pay too much attention, didn't really watch much college ball. But then I started thinking, wait a minute, if I can improve and make myself better, then I might have an opportunity to play college ball. And certainly my parents at that time could not have afforded to send me to Vanderbilt or any other SEC school for that matter. So that's what I did. That's kind of the outlook. So I started working on it in the summer after my sophomore year and got better and better. And finally, coming in after my senior year, got noticed and was made an offer. And a similar story going into college too, but going through college. But that was kind of how that happened. It was really, I just think that the good Lord blessed me with the ability to kick a ball, and I was able to do it. And then He chose a path for me, which was, going through high school and then college and playing pro for a while.
And we've been talking throughout the evening, Jim, about the draft, and we think of kickers and punters usually signing as free agents, but you were drafted in the 5th round. Take me back to the '83 draft, your expectations and the surprise or not surprise way it went down.
Well, came in. It was funny because I got to know several guys, and back then you had 3 combines. You didn't have one. So if you got invited to a couple of those, you knew you had a good opportunity. I was invited to 2. I had another guy that was at both of those who has since passed, but was a wonderful and a great NFL player too, Reggie Roby. And so Reggie and I were at a couple of these during the combines and performed very well. And when I was at Vandy, I got to know a few of the scouts that would come in from time to time. They were looking at, receivers or running backs or whatever, and just talking and got to know them and started doing a little studying. So I was looking at teams who might need one, who might need a punter to take in the draft. And so I picked out some of those, but I was way off in actuality. But we got to draft day. Reggie and I were projected to go as high as 2 or 3. Of course, that didn't happen. I went 5. I think he went 6. And but I think at the time I had friends. This is funny. I had friends. I thought, well, I'll get together and we'll have a draft day party. Well, we get together at a friend's house. I think I'm the only guy that's had a draft day party. It was a 2-kegger at that time. But we go here. We're watching. I'm thinking, okay, here's a team that could take it, and you're getting into that area of 3rd round on. I'm thinking we've got a good opportunity here, but nobody's taking any punters or kickers, and so that was really second day of draft were those rounds. So second day we're back at my friend's house. I got friends over and finally get a call from the Chiefs. Saying they were going to draft me in the 5th round. And, of course, shoot, you got the opportunity to play in the NFL. Of course, I'd love to be there, love to be a Chief. And they took us. They took me then. And although it didn't end up my career there, it was a good pathway into the NFL for me.
Jim, before we let you go, remind our listeners what you're doing now.
Well, I'm here in Nashville, Tennessee. I work at a little garden center. So I don't have a whole lot of stress in life. Things are good. I'm out tonight at a local establishment called the Corner Pub in the Woods after I watched some girls, my girlfriend and some other people play volleyball at the YMCA here. And life is good. I can't complain. If I do, nobody's going to listen anyway, so it's all good. Just I'm hanging out, listen, enjoying being here and chatting with you guys. I really do. You'll have a great show. Hope your listening base grows and grows and grows. But I can't tell you how thankful and humbled I am you asked me to be on your program.
Wow, we appreciate that very much. Jim, how can our listeners stay up to date with you? Are you out there on social media?
I am. I'm not super active. I'm on Facebook, and then I'm on Twitter, but I don't twit that much. I don't know if that's what you say. I have no idea what the terminology is. All these younger kids know that stuff. So anyway, I'll throw some stuff out there from time to time, but not very often on Twitter. So I follow more to get news on sports than I do posting. But I am on Facebook.
Well, Jim, thank you so much for taking time away from the folks that you're out with tonight to be a part of the show. It's great catching up with you. You're always a lot of fun. We hope you'll come back and do it again real soon.
I absolutely will. All you have to do is ask. And thank you for letting me be on here. Wishing you guys nothing but the best with the show and everything else in your life. And once again, just thank you very humbly from my heart for asking me to be on.
We appreciate it, Jim. Take care, my friend. We'll catch up soon.
All right. Y'all have a great night.
Thanks, Jim. That is Jim Arnold. And, Bob, great career at Vandy and did some great things in the NFL. And it's always just a treat to, get to listen to him, sit back, listen to him tell stories. He's fantastic.
He is great, isn't he, Chris? And he sounds so stress-free. I mean, watching his girlfriend play volleyball, little throw a few back here. You know, I mean, he's got his stuff together and seems so great. But, yeah, we do forget how good this guy was. Led the league, again, 45 yards per punt in 84, and had a punt a lot in those days, Chris. He punted almost 200 times, 84 and 85. That's because those were the Chief teams that weren't that good, under 500 teams. But, my goodness, he made his mark, and great 12-year career, Pro Bowl guy. Can't wait to speak with him again.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to getting Jim back on the show again real soon. All right, when Bob and I come back, we'll be turning on our Thursday Night Tailgate Spotlight on the Positive, so stick with us. Hear which players are doing great things in their communities, and then we'll wrap up the show, and we're going to do that on the other side of these words about our friends at the Salt Creek Golf Retreat and Doubleback Winery.
If you're looking for a great place for your annual golf outing, a weekend golf getaway, or just a round of golf with your buddies, then Salt Creek Golf Retreat is just what you're looking for. Centrally located in Nashville, Indiana, just south of Indianapolis and west of Cincinnati. This challenging but fair 18-hole golf course appeals to all skill levels, and its scenic views of rolling hills and tree-lined fairways are sure to make golfing memories for years to come. Owned and operated by former Purdue and New York Giants fullback Randy Manier, Salt Creek Golf Retreat offers stay-and-play packages that include golf and a fully furnished 1- or 2-bedroom condo. After your rounds, be sure to stop by the 19th Hole Sports Bar and Restaurant for great food, fun, and drinks. Randy and his staff will treat you like family. For more information, log on to saltcreekgolf.com. That's saltcreekgolf.com. Or give them a call at 812-558-5944. Salt Creek Golf Retreat. Start making your golfing memories today.
Former NFL quarterback Drew Bledsoe, owning a winery has been a long-time aspiration that would allow him to combine his passion for fine wines and love of his hometown, the Walla Walla Valley. Drew returned in 2007 to plant his original estate vineyard, McQueen, on the southern end of the Walla Walla Valley. The following year, Drew launched Doubleback, an estate-focused winery with the goal to produce world-class Cabernet Sauvignon. Since the very first release, the 2007 Cabernet Sauvignon, Doubleback has received numerous accolades, including a spot on the Wine Spectre's Top 100 list. Drew's vision, brought to life by winemaker Josh McDaniels, remains to be a premium wine experience, completely focused on quality. To further assist the vision of high quality, estate-focused wine, Drew has acquired and planted 4 estate vineyards in the Walla Walla Valley, and recently broke ground on the future home of Doubleback Winery, which will open in 2018. Drew is committed to using only the most sustainable, superlative winemaking practices to ensure that Doubleback will be one of the best bottles of wine you will drink. We invite you to learn more about Doubleback and sign up for our mailing list at doubleback.com. That's doubleback.com.
Thursday Night Tailgate, where the spotlight is always on the positive. Tune in Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time to hear your favorite NFL legends, players, and coaches sharing their stories. Now back to Chris and Bob.
I wouldn't joke about anything else that happens here tonight.
Hey, we're back here on Thursday Night Tailgate, and we're turning on our spotlight on the positive. Bob, who you putting your spotlight on this week?
I'd give a great shout-out tonight, Chris, to Malcolm Jenkins of the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, this is a guy who plays the secondary. Won a Super Bowl in his rookie year, Chris, when he was in New Orleans, and now as his career winds down, he wins another Super Bowl in Philadelphia. It's pretty cool, but I think we mentioned him a while ago for some of the good things he does, but since then, again, he's been nominated for the Man of the Year last year again. Runs this Malcolm Jenkins Foundation. Pretty much that's been going on since he came into the league, Chris, and it's great because he kind of focuses on 3 areas. He was brought up in New Jersey, went to school in Ohio, and, of course, he plays in Pennsylvania. So this area of the country here in the East is where he really does an awful lot. And some of the things the foundation does, first of all, it's pretty much it helps youth in very underserved communities, Chris. He's done a lot of scholarship money to college seniors. He does a lot with that. In the Philadelphia area especially, where people are lacking resources, he does a lot with food banks, Chris. I think just last year, his Feed the Children program, he partnered with them, and he handed out a lot of food. And I think over the last 4 years, I last read that he's helped over 14,000 people with food donations. That's pretty amazing to me. And also he's involved with trying to ease racial tensions and get changes in the justice system. He does a lot of work with Jeff Lurie and the people in the front office there, meeting with Philadelphia area administrators. So the guy really cares, Chris, and not only is he a great player on the field, he's done so much off the field to even make him more dear to us. So, again, great shout-out to a Man of the Year nominee from last year, Malcolm Jenkins.
Yeah, he continues to do such great things, Bob, and, kudos to you for bringing him back up. Tonight, Bob, I'm going to put my spotlight on the Jets organization because I want to point out a program that they have which is fantastic. It's called Stomp Out Bullying, and the campaign is dedicated to changing the culture for all students, and not just in the New York area, just across the country. It works to reduce and prevent bullying, cyberbullying, sexting, and other digital abuse, and educates against homophobia, LGBTQ discrimination, racism, hatred, and deters violence in schools, online, and in, like I said, communities across the country. Stomp Out Bullying also promotes civility, inclusion, and equality, and it teaches kids effective solutions on how to respond when, unfortunately, they become the targets of all these different various ways that bullying goes on these days. The program also provides help for those who currently are in a situation where they're being bullied, and helps kids that are at risk for suicide, because we know that a lot of this bullying is just, off the chart, and kids feel really badly about themselves, and far too often results in suicide. So, the folks, if you know somebody who is a victim of bullying, please go to stompoutbullying.org to get them some help. And Bob, I just want to kudos to the Jets for getting involved in this sort of situation, providing programs to help kids who are being bullied, whether it's in person or it's over social media as well.
Great. Thanks for bringing that up, Chris, because it continues to be a problem everywhere. The bullying is supposed to be a no-nonsense policy in a lot of the schools up this way, but we still see a lot of it going on, and it has a bad effect on a lot of kids, Chris, and there is no reason for it, and you got to stomp it out, and I'm glad football teams are recognizing this and taking a proactive stance. Kudos to the Jets. They do some great things up here.
Yeah, and, it's reminiscent of our good friend Nick Lowry, who's also involved in some anti-bullying campaigns. So shout out to Nick Lowry for the things that he's doing with his foundation as well. All right, Bob, it is time for us to put a bow on this episode of Thursday Night Tailgate. We want to send out our thanks again to Russell Baxter, Tony Collins, Paul Alexander, Stacey Mack, and Jim Arnold for joining us tonight. And, Bob, as always, the greatest part of doing the show is getting to spend my Thursday nights with you, my friend.
Well, thank you, Chris. That was a lot of fun with some old friends and a lot of good draft talk. So now we could settle in, maybe get off the draft a little, see how everything unfolds, and what are we doing next week, my friend?
Yeah, next week we're going to catch up with Red Sox legend Rico Petrocelli, Bob. Always a great time for us to spend some time with Rico. Man. Former Dolphins defensive back Sean Wooden will join us, as will super agent and TNT Hall of Famer Lee Steinberg. Always great to have Lee as part of the show. Former Seahawks fullback Jim Walsh will be making his TNT debut. And, of course, Tony Collins will be back with us, as he is every week here on Thursday Night Tailgate. We hope you'll come back and be a part of the show with all of us. I want to remind everybody how you can follow us on social media. First, on Facebook, we have a page for the show, Thursday Night Tailgate. Give us a like. That's very important to us. Plus, both Bob and I have our own pages on Facebook as well. Please check out our website, ThursdayNightTailgate.com. On there, you'll be able to see who some of our future guests are going to be. Plus, we've got links to stream our show as a podcast over on our page on Podbean. Please download the Podbean app and give us a listen. You can take us with you everywhere you go on your mobile phone when you download the Podbean app. Big kudos and thanks to them for featuring us in their football fan section, as well as over on the golf side on our show Next on the Tee, right there on the main page of their mobile app. Plus, if you enjoy listening to podcasts, they've got great shows across all genres over there. So go to podbean.com or download the Podbean app to check it out. We can't thank them enough. Bob, take us home, my friend.
Hey, Chris, you enjoy the weekend, and we'll talk next week. And I want to send out thanks also to our terrific announcer, Joe Lajanusa, for the great job he does with our intro and ads. And we want to thank Kyle Turley and the Kyle Turley Band for the upcoming outro music. And on behalf of myself and Chris, we want to thank everyone out there tonight for listening. We appreciate you the most. And until next week, good night, Kevin, and good night, Terry. We miss you guys.